Hello and welcome back to Economic Forum. Today the subject is real estate prices. I'd like to welcome you to my two guests, Dr. Mustafa Rifat from the Ain Shams University Faculty of Engineering. Thank you very much for being on the show. And of course, Dr. Mohammed Ibrahim also from the Ain Shams University, the Faculty of Engineering. Thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Now, we've been talking about the real estate prices. It's a complex situation. People make it simple. People make it sound simple, either just attributing the cause of the current high prices just to the construction materials or to the land, or they blame the government. The question is, why are prices high? Is there a definite cause, and could you perhaps single out the various factors that play into the price equation?
Okay, thank you for your invitation, and we are glad to be here with you. Concerning the price, increasing of price, there is many factors affecting the price of the housing. First of all, the construction material cost prices. We see that iron and cement are doubling the price from the last year.
Yes.
And those are in very direct influence on the increasing of prices. Yes. Of building housing. Another issue also is the land price itself. It's becoming more and more higher than before. And this is unknown why, because this phenomena is, we don't have no reasons about it. Is it bidding on it or what? We don't know really what is the exact cause. Yes. But moreover is the people coming from Arab countries, from the Gulf area and from Iraq especially. They have many surplus money that are coming to pour it here in Egypt and to invest in housing. Yes. Those money, they have the affordability to put much money to get high price building. So all of these factors accumulative affects the prices of housing.
Just quickly, do you tend to agree with this assertion?
Definitely, I'm totally in accord with what Dr. Mohammed said.
Yes.
You have a price increase just from January 2008 till now. We are in August. We have about the direct cost for building material just increased to about 27%. We have not the steel only, you have cement and all the materials, you have the labor itself,
yes,
and as well the increase in land.
Yes.
The external investments, the foreign people that do come and pump their money here in Egypt,
yes,
it's kind of a relation between they have the money, they got the driving force,
yes,
the buying ability. So this definitely will put the market into more buying possibilities and definitely as well rising up the prices.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this quick report on the real estate market situation in Egypt. You're watching Economic Forum.
The Ministry of Housing, Utilities and Urban Communities is one of the state sectors concerned with the Arab Republic of Egypt's comprehensive development, including urban, communal and economic one. The new Urban Communities Authority, the NUCA, invites contractors and real estate investors qualification for the construction of medium housing units in the cities of New Cairo, 6th of October, Sheikh Zayed, Shuru, Al Ubur, Badr, 10th of Ramadan, Sadat, New Damietta, New Bani Suef, New Minya, New Asyut, New Suhag, New Qina, New Aswan, 15th of May, New Burj Al Arab and New Fayoum. It is responsible for fixing the land price. Area of available lands is 600, 800, 1,000 and 1,200 square meters. Preamble is a pioneering housing project and was initiated by President Hosni Mubarak for provision of modern domicile for youth and at appropriate prices. This project is known for its architectural models for elevation of public taste. Maximum elevation is 4 floors plus basement. This is done according to accurate and objective standards upon all applications for ensuring their eligibility. 74,433 housing units were constructed along 3 phases in great number of new cities all over the country. This started early 1996 and all works were finished. In February 1998, this was a call by First Lady Mrs. Suzanne Mubarak for the prompt solution of the housing problem for a greater number of low-income segments. For fulfilling this noble idea through this wide participatory approval, this association was officially promulgated by the Ministry of Social Affairs Decree subject to Law 32 for the year 1964 and its regulation. Board of the Directors was formed including members of the real estate, finance, industrial investment and contracting sectors. All project shareholders are members of this association. This association receives contribution from different people for building housing units. The construction of 15,636 units in the number of the new cities whereby plus fully equipped with utilities and areas are provided, association shared partially in the costs by contributions of real estate, industrial sectors, contracting companies as well as all rich people.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Economic Forum as we tackle the subject of real estate prices in Egypt. Now, back to the question of land. Why are, we talked about the high prices of land and how there's no real explanation for the soaring prices of land. Now, could you perhaps, there could be other explanations for it, couldn't there?
There are many aspects that do influence the land price. The land price is definitely tagged to the international prices of land. But as well having internal actions that do happen here in Egypt, like for example the higher bids during the auctions that have been made in different locations in the North Coast, even in new developments, which a wider sector was used to be for mid and low class population in these new developments. Rising land prices have not made it possible now for the government to build in these areas for low-income people and the mid-class.
But wouldn't it be normal, if you have a very high demand on a piece of land, and the land is limited in Cairo, at least in downtown Cairo, for instance, that because there's so many different people who want that piece of land, that the price, you can just put the price higher and higher. Wouldn't that be a logical explanation of demand and supply? Okay,
but we want to first to make segregation between price of land of inner city, like in Cairo, Alexandria, and the price of land in new towns.
Yes.
Since 1973, when our President Sadat made his speech and invaded the desert, and from that date, there was so much new towns being established. It was expected that land prices in these new towns will be lower, as a kind of incentives for the people to go there. Actually, it's more important to concentrate about new towns and to make it lesser in price, and to make some kind of cross-subsidize between higher prices in inner cities or in Cairo, Alexandria, and so on, and in new towns. Because it's more important to make the people move from inner city to the outer city. But besides that, there have to be some kind of incentives for the people to settle there, like public transportation, easy one and cheap one, services and infrastructure in reasonable cost.
Absolutely.
But this is not the case actually.
This hasn't been as successful as it was initially hoped. Now, back to the influx of foreign investors. Cairo and Egypt as a whole has been a resort of sorts for investors, and they've been having a good time pouring their money into the real estate market, among other things. Now, how much do you think has this had an effect on the real estate market?
It has a drastic effect.
Would you consider it the most dramatic one of the factors?
I believe yes, but the internal actions as well help to have this. You have not only Arabs that do buy properties here in Egypt. What is astonishing is, what is new as well, is that you have developments like in Hurghada, in Sharm el-Sheikh. You have many populations from Europe that do come here and buy properties. You have all properties that could be rented as well during the summer period while they are not here, and you have it definitely with a small chunk of the price for what they can buy in Spain or any other countries. So yes, you're definitely right. It is a big influencing factor. As well, all the happenings that do happen in the wars and The other factors that happened in the nearby countries did influence the touristic movements, and a lot of the tourists now, whether Arabs or people from Europe, they do prefer to come to Egypt.
Yes. Well, I'm going to allow for a quick phone call here. We have Salah Higab on the phone from the Construction Committee of the Businessmen Society. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today here on Economic Forum.
Thank you.
Now, we've been talking, as you've been following probably all along, about the real estate situation in Egypt. We were talking about the high prices in the market. What is the greatest factor that we would attribute the increasing prices to?
As I'm following what your guests are saying, we have to differentiate between the land and the prices for touristic reasons and the land for housing. Land for housing is something else. We have to take care, and we have to have a land policy for land, for prices for these lands due to what we are intending to have. Usually the land equals zero, plus all the infrastructure cost. If this land had been planned to be acquired by lowest income group, it has to differentiate between that and other land for middle income or upper income. This land policy will give us a situation for land which will not be affecting the lowest income group. The others who can afford can acquire the land with the prices which can cover the infrastructure cost of the lowest income group, and the middle income group will have the land for its infrastructure price. This land policy is very, very important to be announced, and everyone has to know it.
Absolutely. But now, would you tend to agree that there is not enough supply for middle and low income groups at the moment?
There is no supply because this land has, as planned for lowest income group, has to go to the lowest income group, not for others.
Yes.
And we have in Egypt, we are planning and we are building for the Egyptians, especially for housing. We have to intend that we are planning and building for the Egyptians due to the economic stratas of the Egyptians, lowest and middle and upper, in the proper place. This is the policy which we have to look for, and utilizing all the tools, including the financing tool and the land to be acquired in the proper time and the proper place. For the lowest income group, we have in Egypt 500,000 marriages a year. This means that we need 500,000 housing units a year.
Yes.
From all the economic stratas.
Yes.
This is the policy which we are looking to have.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for your insight, of course, Mr. Salah Higab. Thank you very much for joining us on the show.
You're welcome.
Now, do you tend to agree with his assertion? I mean, we were talking about the lack of affordability and availability of housing for low-income groups. Do you tend to agree with that assertion?
Yes, I totally agree with with architect Salah Higab, what he mentioned nowadays. Actually, there is another issue that whenever the government is supplying housing for low income, they put it in remote locations. They construct this kind of housing in a remote location where they lack transportation, they lack facilities, they lack any kind of job opportunity. So that makes them against moving from their location today to the new locations, because they are living now in informal housing, which is cheap, and they have the infrastructure. Actually, the government already supply them with infrastructure there, so they are legal, not illegal, because they supply them with all their demands of electricity and water.
Yes.
And they have their job opportunities near their housing.
Yes.
So whenever you are trying to transfer them to a new location, which is in a remote area, here there will be a struggle.
Yeah.
They won't agree about moving from this area to that areas. So it's important whenever you are going to, it's not a matter also of supplying low-income housing, but a matter of the quality of life there, the quality of facilities and services, to ensure that whenever they are going to settle there, they will be settled forever,
yes.
not for a short time and then to search for another area to come to go there.
Yes, I mean already Mr. Salah Higab, he mentioned the marriages that occur every year. And there are statistics, I mean, obviously there are about 14 million Egyptians, according to recent statistics, that are single and are at an age that could be considered appropriate for marriage. And obviously all these people, by the way, that marks about 29% of the total population. These people need housing. Now, according to another source and another report that was done, by 2010 there would be a need for another 4.3 million housing units. How can these housing units be provided, but more specifically, can the private sector play a role in providing housing units to these middle, low, or lowest income groups?
Right. My belief is that it's only the responsibility of the government, because you know, as for the private sector, I mean, for an investor to lose a bit of chunk of money, it's definitely not on his scope of business, of interest as well. I mean. Like Dr. Mohammed said, I mean, we should provide incentive. I mean, the only idea and solution to get out of the higher prices, which is definitely in the mid-towns
yes.
and the developed districts, is just to go out.
Yes.
It is an old idea, and since decades away, the government have been doing this, but I believe that the government doesn't take the sprint till the finish line.
Okay.
I mean, you know, the Sadat development, the 10th of Ramadan, the Shuruk, the New Cairo, all these developments had planned to have government and ministries just moving with these new developments.
Yes.
So you are just tagging people working in these ministries. All the business that is tagged to these ministries will move towards the locations,
yes.
a new location.
Yes.
I mean, all these ideas have not been done.
Yes.
So you cannot assess the success of this new development after these decades have
yes.
been...
There is another issue also. There is a new policy now in the government, Ministry of Housing, when they supply land for high-rise building for Arab or Egyptian investors, they ask them to build they ask them to build low-income housing or middle-class income housing beside their
yes.
their projects. So some kind of cross-subsidize between
yes.
here and there. This could help a little bit about the situation, because
it is, of course, beyond any reasonable doubt that you can't just build luxurious housing like that. There needs to be a social responsibility aspect
Yes.
to it, be it from the corporate side, which is known as, I think, corporate social responsibility projects, or any government required aspects. So that is absolutely normal. But now I want to go a bit to the luxurious aspect. We see all these new towns booming all across Cairo, and of course the different resorts on the seaside. Is the market saturated at the moment, or is there still demand? Because it seems to me quite incredible. I mean, they're emerging everywhere, and it doesn't stop. But is there really so much demand at the moment?
there is little bit demand, and I think that the market is going to a level of saturation for the high-class housing, unless there is investors coming from the upper Arab world.
Yeah.
This will be another issue. But I think that we have to take care not to pour so much investment in this kind of housing.
Yes.
Because whenever we go to the saturation, I hope we're not going to have a collapse
Yes.
in this market, because people are pouring so much investment and then there will be no demand.
Yes.
So we have to take care about the market mechanism.
Yes.
Supply and demand is very important.
Yes.
But now we are in great demand. There is great demand of middle class and low income housing projects,
Yes.
and this is a responsibility of the government itself, beside the private sector.
Yes. But so there is no business model that exists or that has been done that can foresee a low income, middle income housing project being profitable?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you can have middle-class people that could buy luxurious apartments or luxurious living.
Yes.
If you have a kind of the so-called European mortgage scheme. We don't have the mortgage scheme here. We do have banks that do invest some of its money into mortgages, but it didn't come to a 0.5% of the total selling market budget.
Yes.
For example, we have in Lebanon, the figures are 15%, whereas in the US, 65% are provided by mortgages.
Yes.
I believe that in the near future, we will be having quite successful schemes. We have two great firms here just starting and have licenses, one from the United Arab Emirates, the other is from the Saudi Arabia, that will provide good and reliable, maybe affordable mortgage schemes here in Egypt for the middle class people.
Yes. I mean, what role, other reports now show that the average real estate prices are on the decrease this year. Is this having an impact, or is this reflected in the Egyptian market, or is the Egyptian market sort of a system of its own, would you say?
No, we have our own situation. It is of course affected by the international market, yes. But we have our own circumstances. So like the people coming from Arab countries in their vacation, the price goes high. After they leave and in the middle of the year, the price goes low. So we have our own situation. It's of course affected by the international market, yes. But we have our own conditions.
Yes. What about the role of the value of the pound? How much does that play in? I mean, obviously it would play into the construction materials and any imports that are done necessary for the building project. But how else would it affect the real estate market for those who don't really know much about the market itself?
Right, that's a definite point that do affect people coming from foreign countries that do invest here in Egypt.
Yes.
If you just do the translation between Egyptian pounds and any other foreign currency, you will find that you can buy a property here for a small price fraction of what you can buy in your own country.
Yes.
So this is why investments do pump here now from foreign countries into the Egyptian market.
Yes. I mean, you just talked about, actually we all just did, about the bubble not bursting, but that the bubble might burst, especially on the luxurious level, luxurious housing unit level.
Yes.
How likely is that to happen at the moment, in your estimate? I mean, it's of course very difficult to foresee, but do you think that there's enough demand for the near future to sustain the momentum?
Yeah, I mean, like Dr. Mohammed said, there will come in the very near future a saturation point, because people who do have the money, they will become saturated. But if we are not taking with the hand of the middle class people who can, through mortgage schemes, buy these properties, then we will definitely have this big bubble not burst, but it will reach a kind of state of equilibrium that you will not have any...
I would like to mention another issue also about from the national point of view, about in the interest of the community.
Yes.
I think the government have to concentrate more about investing in industrial and in agricultural development projects, not in the housing project itself, because the turnover of the, if you are to speak about sustainability you can find it in industrial projects, development projects, and agriculture.
Yes.
But if you are to speak about bidding in lands, prices, and housing, I thought it's not in the benefit of the community to pour all this money and to concentrate all this effort about real estate projects.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to allow again, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Economic Forum. We're talking about the real estate situation here in Egypt. We're letting in for another phone call. Hisham Ashmawi, welcome to the show.
Hi.
You've been following our show today, and of course our discussion on the real estate situation in Egypt. What would you say is the strongest factor that is currently influencing this increase in prices that we're seeing?
Well, first of all, we have to understand what's going on in the world. In what way? Zoning area. We don't really have a system in Egypt to allow residential only, or business zoning only, or code for construction. What I say by code is not the heights. I mean the safety. I mean the quality of construction, the price, the appraisal, the deed. For example, most of the new projects that we see in Egypt, villas for $1 million or $5 million or $10 million or $500,000, it's not the price. If today he give me an installment for 10 years and I would make my payment monthly or whatever. If I'm willing to pay him cash, which is supposed to be a very unique situation, can he really register this house? In Arabic, يسجل تسجيل هذا البيت أو registration? No. Most of this property are liened by the bank, and the government, by not allowing those people to make a clear and clean deal to the buyers, no understanding between the buyer and the seller. So most of the big organization for housing that they are selling homes, they ask you to make an installment, and when you finish your installment, when it comes really to register this house, the deed of the house is not available because the owner of this project, even a company or a person, has borrowed money against this. He collected an installment from the people, and he will not register for them. So that's number one. We don't have really a clear deal between the buyer and the seller. That's number one. Number two, we don't have a zoning area, which means when the government allow 10 different construction companies to build in New Cairo or where else, they don't say we have to have a hospitals for those people, schools for those people, nursing home for those people. It has to be really a full house system, and we don't have to invent a new thing. We can put a package where any successful country has it been done between California, between Paris, we have to look at the new city, how did they develop themselves, and we learn from them, and we photocopy this in a better way. But to my opinion, what's going on, no matter how sophisticated and how expensive and how good, is not proper for the Egyptian to enjoy the quality of the lifestyle they deserve.
Yes. But what is your, your forecast for the next few months or perhaps for the next few years in terms of the real estate market? How will, first of all, prices develop, and will there be more offerings, sufficient offerings for the rising generations of the middle and
I don't
class?
think it will go any more higher. What happened in the States and in Europe for the past 10 years, it repeats itself worldwide, especially in Egypt. So the prices has been inflated more than what it should be. It's not reasonable. Many people, they buy it an investment because this is the most important thing for them, and they call it real estate, because this is really something they touch, but has been increased because now each one capable of buying 5 or 6 different units, he closes them. But I think the new law that we have for tax brackets will allow those people to use their apartments, either to rent it or sell it or use it, and I think the prices will go definitely down because it cannot increase anymore. And this is what happened 10 years ago and still going on, started 10 years ago in Europe and the United States.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Hisham Ashmawi from the Arab American Businessmen Association. Thank you very much for being on the show. Well, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to have to leave it at that, and it brings us to the brief end with our guests today. I'd like to thank, of course, Dr. Mustafa Rifat from the Ain Shams University Faculty of Engineering.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being on the show. And, of course, Dr. Muhammad Ibrahim, also from Ain Shams University.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very
for
much.
being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. The stock market recap of the week follows. We have, of course, a lot of details, a lot of developments happening in the market this week. So stay tuned, and I'll be back right after that.